Okay, so we're about to dive into a truly wild story where two worlds you would never, ever expect to collide totally did. The high stakes, big money world of the NBA and the shadowy operations of the Mafia. And what federal investigators found wasn't just some small-time scandal. Nope, this was a historic bust. And honestly, we're just now starting to see how deep it all goes. And look, the FBI was not messing around. At the very first press conference, Director Kash Patel just laid it all out there. He made it crystal clear this wasn't some minor thing. He called it a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise. And the moment he directly connected the NBA to La Cosa Nostra, well, you can imagine the shockwaves that sent through pretty much everyone. And the scale of this whole thing? Just look at that number. 34. 34 people arrested. And this wasn't over months or years. This was a single, massive, coordinated sweep that happened all at once across 11 different states. That right there tells you we are not talking about some small group of guys. We're talking about a sophisticated nationwide network. So, you're probably wondering, how does a web this huge even get started? Well, the investigation basically uncovered two major criminal schemes that were connected in some pretty shocking ways. Let's start with the one that took aim directly at the world of pro basketball. So the investigation into the NBA side of things was officially called Operation Nothing But Bet. Pretty clever, right? But seriously, authorities are saying this is one of the most brazen, just out in the open corruption schemes they've seen since sports betting became legal all over the country. It's like a perfect storm of modern opportunity and old school crime. And this is where it gets really clever. See, they weren't betting on which team would win or lose a game. That's too hard to control. They were manipulating prop bets. Those are wagers on a single player's individual performance. You know, like points, rebounds, assists, that kind of thing. And that is the absolute key, because it is way, way easier for one crooked player to control their own stats than it is to throw an entire game. So here's how they did it, broken down into 4 pretty simple steps. It all started with inside information. Someone would get a tip that a player was going to fake an injury and leave a game early. Armed with that knowledge, they would just flood the betting markets with underbets, basically betting the player wouldn't hit their statistical targets for the night. Then, like clockwork, the player would underperform or just leave the game. The final step? Cleaning all that money. We're talking tens of thousands in winnings to make it look legit. And the indictment lays out this perfect real-world example. According to the feds, Terry Rozier, who was with the Hornets at the time, told the group he was planning to duck out of a game early. The crew then immediately went and placed over $200,000 in bets on his understats. So Rozier plays just 9 minutes, every single one of those bets hits, and they allegedly just delivered his cut in cash right to his house. So who actually got charged in this whole NBA scheme? Well, the indictment points the finger at current NBA player Terry Rozier, former player and now coach Damon Jones, and 4 other guys. They're all staring down some really serious charges, like wire fraud and money laundering. But believe it or not, this was only half the story. Right, so the NBA betting thing was just one piece of this massive puzzle. Because at the exact same time all that was happening, a totally separate scheme was running in parallel. We're talking a high-tech cheating operation in high-stakes poker games, all run by the Mafia. And you're about to see exactly how these two connect. You know, the criminals even had their own slang for everything, which is kind of fascinating. The victims, who were often these super wealthy people just looking for a big game, they were called the fish. And the bait they used to lure them in, they were called the face cards, famous, well-known athletes who made these crooked games seem totally legit. And the face cards they were using were huge names. I mean, we are talking about Chauncey Billups, an NBA champion, a Hall of Famer. And there's that name again, Damon Jones, the same guy from the NBA betting scheme. Just imagine getting an invite to a poker game with these guys. You'd think it's the chance of a lifetime, right? But in reality, you were walking straight into a trap. Now check this out, because this is what makes this case just so nuts from a law enforcement angle. The rigged games in New York, they were backed by 4 of the city's 5 major crime families. Getting the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese families to all work together on one criminal scheme is, well, as the NYPD commissioner put it, extraordinarily rare. And the technology they used to make sure they'd win was something straight out of a spy movie. This was not simple card counting. They had rigged shuffling machines that could read an entire deck of cards, poker tip trays with hidden cameras inside, special contact lenses that could read marked cards, and even something the feds called an X-ray table that could somehow read cards while they were still face down. This wasn't a game of chance. It was a high-tech heist, and they fleeced people for millions. So here's how all that crazy tech came together. They had an operator, hidden away somewhere else, watching all the secret feeds from all the rigged devices. This person knew every single card in play. They'd then send that information to one guy at the table, their quarterback, who would then secretly signal to his buddies what to do. The fish never, ever stood a chance. This second, much bigger investigation was nicknamed Operation Royal Flush. So the big question is, how do these two giant cases, the NBA prop bets and the Mafia's rigged poker games, actually connect? And here it is. This is the direct link. 3 men were charged for being involved in both schemes. Damon Jones was kind of the ultimate bridge, right? He was acting as an insider for the NBA betting and a face card to lure victims to the poker games. And 2 other guys, Eric Ernest and Shane Hennon, were also key players in both operations. This is the spot where the 2 worlds officially became one. So in total, the 34 defendants are facing a whole laundry list of really serious charges. It starts with stuff you'd expect, like wire fraud and illegal gambling, but it definitely does not end there. When some of the victims couldn't pay up on their debts, the charges escalated into violent crimes, including extortion and even armed robbery. And this is a really critical point that the authorities made sure to emphasize. They made it clear that the legal sports betting companies, the sports books, they were actually victims here. They were the ones getting defrauded by this whole scheme, and they were not in on the conspiracy at all. And the U.S. attorney had a pretty blunt message for all 34 defendants who got rounded up in this massive takedown. This statement was basically a declaration, saying it doesn't matter how slick your scheme is or how famous the people involved are, the game is over. And all of that leaves us with this huge question, one posed by the FBI director himself. This case is about so much more than just illegal betting. It really strikes at the very heart of sports integrity. So could this be for the NBA what those massive insider trading scandals in the 80s were for Wall Street? Honestly, that's the question that's going to be hanging over the league for a long, long time.